The 4th of July is now in the rearview mirror. The season is creeping ever closer for Ohio State. This is a Monday on the beat. I am Austin Ward. He is Jeremy Birmingham. And Birm, I hope you had a wonderful holiday weekend. We're already a week into July. Like, football is going to be here soon.
Yeah, and that's okay. The weekend was good. I hope everyone out there listening, watching had
Wait a minute. That's okay?
Yeah, I mean, it was okay.
Football's going to be here soon?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, what else are we going to do? Look, we have been begging people for content to talk about on the Austin Birm show for the last couple of weeks. And ultimately, if there's nobody, providing us some ideas, which we're still looking for, to be honest, the sooner we get to football season, the better, because then we don't have to spend our time talking about the people who are talking. And that is what's happening right now. We've got a couple more weeks about talking about people who are talking, because that's what happens in the summer. But, last week, a lot of conversation about Jeremiah Smith and his quotes. Today, we're going to deep dive into the response to some of his quotes from one of this, sports media's biggest morons, in Paul Finebaum, because he's decided to chime in. I'm not sure why. Wait a second. See, this is where I'm playing right into the trap, and I get annoyed with myself when it happens, because we know why people talk about Ohio State the way that they do, because they know people are going to respond. And so I told myself, as we prepared for this episode of the show, I was going to play it cool. I'm going to be like, hey, I'm not even going to be bothered. I'm not even going to let myself be bothered.
Okay.
And here I am, bothered.
Do you remember a while back when I accidentally coined the term Moron Monday?
Yeah.
Sometimes that is in reference to myself. More often than not, it is elsewhere. And there's two reasons that we know that the season is getting closer. One, we had an awesome 4th of July weekend. And the other is, on the 4th of July, a national media member decided, for no reason whatsoever, that he would just take unnecessary shots at Ohio State. And it's cool to have your own opinions. Like, it'd be really boring if everybody agreed about everything that should happen in sports, and that this team should always win, or this person is a personality that you really enjoy. But what Paul Finebaum elected to do on Friday, on our nation's birthday, for no reason, to Ryan Day, just seems moronic. And I guess that tells me that we are steadily creeping into July, and that we need real football games to be played again, because otherwise we're gonna have to keep seeing and hearing stuff like this. Paul Finebaum kicked it off on Get Up by saying, I don't like Ohio State. I think Ohio State is going to lose in the opener against Texas, and they are going to struggle to make the playoffs, let alone win it. Now, there are more quotes that we're going to get into that get more outlandish when it comes to Ryan Day. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you think one team is going to beat another team. Texas is going to be an underdog. They are an underdog already, according to the betting lines in this game. If you think that they're going to win, for whatever reason, Arch Manning, SEC, ESPN contract bias, whatever, doesn't matter. You can pick whoever you want to win. And then if they don't win, you're just going to move on to the very next week. No problem with that. I don't know how you can take it seriously that, well, a national media member is like, well, they're going to struggle to make the playoffs. Tell me how. Give me a little more information on why you think that could be the case, and why the Buckeyes wouldn't get the same benefit of the doubt of the very same team that they're playing on August 30th in the Horseshoe, who has like virtually the same situation in terms of roster reload that the Buckeyes have. We've made that point over and over, and for some reason, it doesn't seem to be sinking in anywhere.
No, it's the problem though with like the snippet world we live in. It's Paul Finebaum, I'm sure, would not speak on Ohio State if he didn't have the ability to contextualize or to add more depth to the conversation if he was asked about it or given more time. But when you're doing a 90-second spot on TV and it's just, hey, talk crap about Ohio State, then this is what you get. Because I don't disagree with any of this that's on the screen in front of you. I think
you disagree with I don't like Ohio State.
Okay, except for that. That part is obviously a subjective thing. I don't But to say I think Ohio State is going to lose in the opener against Texas, fine. That's no, two top 3 schools in the country, 2 top 3 teams in the country, both resetting, doing a lot of things. Maybe you think Ohio State's going to be less ready because Julian's saying in your mind is less ready than Arch Manning. Cool, then just say that. That's fine. I can see how people would think Ohio State might struggle to make the playoff. Ohio State heading into this season is replacing a lot of parts. They're replacing a lot of key players. They were drafted. They just had 15 guys drafted. The Big Ten is going to be pretty good. Penn State and Oregon are both projected to be top 5 teams, top 6 teams as well. Like I can see if you think Ohio State's going to need some help or need to maybe surpass expectations to get into the playoffs, that's fine, let alone win it. It's going to be hard to win the national championship every year. So True. Nothing that he said there to me is altogether that bad. But again, I'm not sure why it's being referenced simply because Jeremiah Smith made a comment about how he doesn't want to lose to Michigan again. Then that's where it all stems from. It's like the worst part about this to me is that Paul Finebaum spent the last 5 years just absolutely shredding apart Michigan and Jim Harbaugh at every turn. And so now that Jim Harbaugh is gone, he's taken his foot off of the throat of Michigan when that's where the conversation should be. Because he could have said, well, Jeremiah Smith only lost to Michigan. Ohio State only lost to Michigan in the last couple of years because Michigan was cheating. But
Are you suggesting, Birm, that Paul Finebaum is an opportunistic opinion maker?
I am suggesting that, and I don't blame him for doing it. That's his job. It's what people want him to do. But
that's true.
In this case, like outside of the I don't like Ohio State, which is probably saying, who do you like to win the national championship this year? Maybe that's the response. I didn't watch it because it's on ESPN's Get Up show. I don't watch that show. I don't know anyone that does. I don't know anyone that ever has. But if I'm sure it was probably couched in that way, but I don't know why you'd say I don't like Ohio State. You just say, hey, this year's good. It's good. It's always tough to repeat. Not a lot of teams do it. When was the last thing that won back-to-back championships? Oh, 3 years ago. Never mind. Okay,
it wasn't that long ago.
Before that.
But, win a national championship like Kirby Smart did, people will start leaving you alone. That's not really happening to Ryan Day. We'll get to that in a second because I want to know.
That's the bigger question.
What was the last non-live sports broadcast on ESPN that you watched? Yeah, that's what I thought.
I did. I mean, I think, I was going to say that I watched some of the hot dog eating competition on the 4th, but
that's an athletic. That's a sporting competition.
Oh, that is a live. Other than that,
yeah, I rest my case. Paul Finebaum would continue. This was the part that I found very strange for multiple reasons. And he says, quote, "I'm glad to see someone on the Ohio State lineup maybe do something more than just mouthing words because Jeremiah sounds serious. Ryan Day has promised after every loss not to lose again." Fact check. That is not correct. He continues to, anyway, back to the quote. He continues to lose again. They are the defending national champions. So even clowns like me on the 4th of July are not going to call for a firing of a coach because he loses one game. But that is a game he has to deal with at some point. That national championship game will pay a lot of bills, probably. Yes, including another loss to Michigan. So a lot to unpack there. It's he takes a shot at himself to try and lighten the mood. Calls himself potentially a clown here for this take. He's not going to call for the firing of a coach. But when you tee it up that way, Birm, do you know what you're doing? You are setting the table to call for the firing of the coach without actually doing it in the middle of July, 6.5 months after that very same coach won a national championship.
Well, because he prefaced it in the earlier part of the comment about the Texas game. He's going to start it right then. If Ryan Day and Ohio State lose to Texas on August 30th, he's going to start saying, well, Ryan Day can't win the big game again. Last year was a fluke. And we're just going to do the same stupid dance. And again, because Ohio State is what draws attention everywhere and it makes people listen, it makes people talk. This is what happens. But this entire comment is just moronic. It's all moronic, the entire thing. More than just mouthing words because Jeremiah Smith sounds serious.
Yeah, I guess Ryan Day doesn't sound serious when, I mean, it makes me uncomfortable even talking about the way Ryan Day contextualized last year's loss to Michigan, saying that it was like almost as bad as when his father died.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't think that Ryan Day is saying these things seriously, I can't take anything that Paul Finebaum says seriously based on that. He's not just mouthing words. The tears that
He's
we've
also
seen
never promised to not lose again. Like,
and no coach would ever do that. I don't know why he said that. Fact check, false. But level of importance of the game and the toll that it takes on Day and his entire family when they lose is like not up for debate. I think everyone knows it. And to suggest that he is not serious about winning the game is asinine. That's not the point. I was asked about it last week about what gives me confidence about why this is the year that Ryan Day can win it. And the level of commitment from the guys like Jeremiah Smith talking about it, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles is a key part of that. Like, this is a good team and with something else to accomplish. And I referenced some of like easing off of the seriousness being a benefit for Ryan Day because of the life and death nature. I think he is more well aware of the fact that that's not the case for an Ohio State Michigan game anymore, and that the fact that they've become two separate issues beyond like the college football playoff and gold pants are no longer intertwined, that would be a good thing. And I think people can accuse me of being optimistic or glass half full for that if they want to. That's fine. I think it is probably better for Ryan Day to be coaching that game without it being full throttle, 4th and inches, 365 days a year, the way it has been for the last 4 years. That's my personal opinion. And maybe I'm a moron for thinking that way. But to suggest at any point that Ryan Day was mouthing words about the rivalry just is ignorance, like full out.
No. And it's also just another instance of the SEC mouthpiece hypocrisy that just like is entirely pervasive through the entire ecosphere of ESPN. Like the reality is Kirby Smart's 1-6 versus Alabama. Okay.
Well, that's a game at some point he's going to have to deal with, Birm.
Also, Kirby Smart's program is just like nonstop breaking the law and having arrests and all the like. There are other programs in the country that are as high profile as Ohio State that have significant issues that are worth discussing. Like USC, for example, all the money they're spending on NIL this year. If Lincoln Riley doesn't win games this year, like there are plenty of other coaches that are worth talking about. As I'm saying, even Georgia, Kirby Smart is as secure as anybody in the country in his job, which is kind of crazy when you think about all of the off the field issues that they've had in the last few years and no one's talking about it. But when you just keep bringing up Ryan Day in Ohio State, he's 1-4 against Michigan. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. He's not running from it. He's not hiding from it. He's not he's not standing around saying, well, I'm never going to let this happen again. We're never going to like, he knows that you're going to lose that game sometimes. That's life when you're playing good teams. He also knows that people are going to react horribly when Ohio State does lose the big games, because that's life again in the big city. And he said it over and over since he took over his job as the head coach at Ohio State, when he said the only things you can't do are lose to Michigan or lose any other time. Like, he knows what this job is about. What's funny to me is that there seems to be a gaggle of talking heads around the country who don't understand that Ryan Day understands this. And they think that he takes this as some sort of lark or a joke. Or is something that's not entirely serious. When, as you mentioned, when Ohio State lost last November 30th, the comparisons that Ryan Day is making in his own life are as severe and, I mean, borderline like insane to make as it could possibly get. Like, he clearly understands it and is more serious than Jeremiah Smith saying he doesn't like to lose. Like, it's not even the same ballpark. It's just, again, it's really grotesque to me that ESPN, because of their relationship with the SEC, is allowed to just peddle this sort of bullshit, pardon my language, like all the time.
Oh boy, we are off and running.
It's gross. It's gross.
Yeah, it is. I don't disagree with you. I thought maybe this Paul Finebaum situation would give you a breather from the NIL sagas going on around the country, because I know you don't want to talk about it. Last Sunday, we were getting ready to record, and you're like, hey, can there be anything other than an NIL conversation and how it's impacting recruiting right now heading into July 1st? I'm like, yeah, let's talk about video games and lighten the mood. And thought maybe I didn't think Paul Finebaum would lighten the mood because I knew there'd be some anger, but we can't pretend like this didn't happen again over the weekend. When Texas Tech is winning battles that Ohio State thinks it is in, that's a development that we have to discuss. And again, considering it's Felix Ojo and the offensive line, I don't know that I'm surprised. And to me, it's not a specific one that changes my opinion and elevates the concern level. Although I may be in the minority on that front.
No, I don't think you should be. And honestly, I mean, if people are going to look at the result here, and they're going to look at the ranking of Felix Ojo, as you said, a 5-star offensive tackle from Mansfield, Texas. Felix Ojo had been telling the entire recruiting industry for the last 2.5 months that essentially he was down to Ohio State and Texas. It was Ohio State, Texas, Texas, Ohio State. Those were the only two schools that people on the outside were ever talking about. And I actually wrote last week at Buckeye Huddle that on Monday I was trying to break down the updates of the official visitors, and I said it felt like something weird was happening and that there might be a surprise coming for Felix Ojo. I didn't really anticipate it being Texas Tech at that point, but the reality is, there was a giant article about Texas Tech and what they're doing to spend money in NIL like 10 days ago. I guess that should have been a sign for people that maybe they had something in the works. But you're talking about a team that understands that they have one billionaire benefactor paying for all these guys, which is a interesting side note. But the question is ultimately, Austin, is how do these deals get approved by the NIL clearinghouse in Deloitte? Because if it's just one person who's bankrolling all this, it has to be done through multiple companies. It has to be done. It is essentially money laundering. And I'm not sure exactly how that will work out in the long run. But when you see the actual numbers here for Felix Ojo, and again, his deal that he reportedly received from Texas Tech here is not quite as egregious as others we've heard. I mean, even in this cycle, Mark Bowman, the tight end committed to USC, I've heard that he signed close to a $3 or $9 million deal. Now that's for a tight end, which is insane. Mm-hmm. But there's no way to really prove that because it happened before the July 1st deadline. And so while any deal, I think it was any deal signed from June 6th through now is still going to be subject to the clearinghouse. Anything signed before June 6th is basically, it's just a ghost. So we'll see how those come. We'll see how those get figured out when the tax man comes calling. But Texas Tech, it's a 3-year, $2.3 million revenue sharing deal. So that's saying that now that's the interesting part. They're saying 3-year, $2.3 million revenue sharing deal, right? So that is over $700,000 a year from the revenue sharing side of things alone. Ohio State, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, is under the impression that they're spending essentially $14.1 million from the school's $18 million fund on football, which means about $1.5 million per position group on the team. So if Felix Ojo is getting almost $750,000 a year from Texas Tech in the profit sharing side of things, that does not lead a whole lot of money for the rest of their position group to be filled out, which again, they don't care. It's Texas Tech. They're going to try to do it the other way. But how do you make up the rest of it? Because the number that we initially saw was over $5 million for Felix Ojo. So there's $2.5 million out there somewhere that is being discussed or being promised that I don't know how they can account for it. And I don't know how an NIL deal for that amount of money is going to be approved when there is no job associated with it at this point. Like, I don't even know how that comes to fruition. And then, that's on Friday. On Saturday, we saw Calvin Russell, a 5-star wide receiver, pick Syracuse over Michigan, Miami, and a handful of others. Now, don't get me, I'm not crying any tears for Michigan or Miami. They're doing things in a way that Ohio State isn't either. But the deal for Calvin Russell, I've heard, is close to $4 million. So I don't know how. That's a lot of money for Syracuse to be dumping into one player. So it is interesting. Ohio State's approach is certainly not that. Now, it doesn't mean the Buckeyes aren't winning on the recruiting trail. They are still have a top 5 class. They landed a commitment on Thursday from Luke Fahey, the quarterback, landed a commitment on Friday from defensive tackle Jameer Perez, very much in the running still for KJ Ford and JB Shabazz, who both decide this coming Friday. But these deals that are being reported now, I think we can actually, put a little bit more stock into them because they're going to have to be reviewed. They're going to have to be looked at. And so the numbers might be closer to actual money. I think it was on Three's Pete Nakos last week. He tweeted that there's more fake money being thrown around than there was a few years ago.
Yep.
And I know that that's one of the concerns Ohio State has had, is that the powers that be are saying, we can't verify these numbers. So these recruits and their agents and their street agents and their third uncles are coming to Ohio State on official visits and saying, this is what we're being offered. And there's actually no way to prove it. So I think the fact that maybe some of these deals are going to be needed to be inspected and looked at under the microscope is probably a good thing. But man, these are huge deals.
Yeah, I think it's Texas Tech and its spending have been under the microscope for 6 or 7 months. And as you said, eventually there's going to not just be like tax implications that reveal it, but also NIL Go, the clearinghouse. Like, you don't just get to make a deal with a benefactor and show up to do 10 autograph signings. Like, the whole point of this clearinghouse and the House settlement and the lawsuit and legislation and fallout is that it's got to be verified and legitimate. So Texas Tech at the same time, or a month ago, they're talking about re-signing their star softball pitcher for a 7-figure deal. So that, and they
signed a basketball player at one of their top end for over $3 million is what their collective said.
And so I understand that some of those were part of the backloaded nature. It was like an 800% jump in NIL spending, last month, which, like, fine, if that's the way it is, so be it. But when you're talking about fake money, and we have been making jokes or pointing that out about USC for quite some time, I think Texas Tech has real money, but I don't think, according to the rules of engagement moving forward, they're allowed to actually spend that to retain that roster. So I think with everything that has happened now in a post July 1 world, like, these guys might wind up all on campus this fall for these programs, and there might not be a rush of decommitments heading into December in the early signing period. But my bold prediction right now, Birm, would be that if you think back to what happened with Texas A&M 5 years ago, I think this is going to be the busiest class of true freshmen entering the transfer portal of all time. Because the money is not real, it's not legitimate, and you can't afford to pay it under what the salary cap revenue sharing agreement laid out. Now, if everybody is finding other loopholes around that, I mean, A, good for them. B, Ohio State will have to figure out what those are for themselves and do that into the future if that becomes the new lay of the land. But again, I don't disagree with the way the Buckeyes have handled this, specific to an offensive lineman for $700,000 of your salary cap, that it won't contribute to winning a national championship this year or potentially even next. I don't think that they should abandon that model. I really don't.
No, I agree. And I think, unfortunately, there's other parts to this that are going to be viewed here. So Texas, on the exact same day that Felix Ojo committed to Texas Tech over Ohio State and Texas, received a commitment from borderline 5-star offensive lineman John Turntine, who, I'm going to say this, and it's going to come across as sour grapes, and it's going to sound like I'm trying to suggest schools like Ohio State and Texas are saying, that we dodged a bullet there because the Ojo money has gotten to the point where it was too much that those schools wanted to pay for what they had seen. Like, there was, unfortunately for Felix Ojo, an opportunity 2 weeks ago to go to Indianapolis in the Rivals 5-Star Challenge and put on display what he was about. And he was significantly, according to people there, like, underperforming and not particularly impressive, to the point where I had heard from people, not just on the Ohio State side last week, saying, we don't really mind if he goes somewhere else, because they were like, well, we had already made a pretty hefty promise based on what we thought he was going to be. And then it looks like this. And Ohio State, from their side, from what I heard, was that the Buckeyes see kids like Aaron Thomas, even JB Shabazz, who will commit this Friday to somewhere Ohio State will be a finalist, as maybe not quite the gap between those players and Felix Ojo that they initially believed as far as development wise. So the fact is that you're not on the hook for that money that you had made a promise of months ago when the recruitment was hot and heavy. I think you're going to see a lot of that. I mean, there are going to be teams that still make big promises, Texas Tech, the USCs, Michigans, that all have varying reasons for being what I would consider desperate in the cycle. For USC, it's if Lincoln Riley gets fired. I mean, it doesn't matter. Michigan, we don't know what's going to happen when it comes to the NCAAs and the enforcement of everything. Like, they may be facing some severe recruiting restrictions and scholarship drawbacks. So they might have to get more aggressive to make sure they get players that are good enough to come in and play right away. So, and Texas Tech obviously just trying to become actually visible on the landscape. I think you're going to see some of these schools just dare the new CDC, CBC, CSC, whatever it is, to say, come and stop us. And that's what I think is the most natural outcome here. And unfortunately for Ohio State fans who are like, hey, why are we letting ourselves be guided by this fictitious set of rules when everyone else isn't? And simply put, Ohio State is just going to let that happen for these few months. So we'll see if their mindset changes, because the minute that one of these schools that is flouting the old ways in front of the new body of discipline, or new body of the Commission of Sports or whatever, once that commission, that new College Sports Commission or committee or whatever the other C is, once that group either proves that it has teeth or doesn't, everything's going to change again. And so I think Ohio State specifically is saying, well, let's see what happens the first time somebody goes to fight that, because if it holds up in court based on the House settlement, then the Buckeyes will look pretty smart and vindicated. And if it doesn't, then they have time to react and make some adjustments before signing day in December.
Yeah, I think we're about a week and a half maybe away from sitting down with Ross Bjork again. And he's been playing a very active role in this College Sports Commission and
that's what the CSC stands for?
Yeah, that's right. And what the punishments and penalties are going to be for violators. Like, and I said this to you last week, and I've talked about it on 97.1 The Fan and 10 TV and 10 TV Plus. Like, Ohio State can't be on the one hand saying we're going to help set the rules for what they should be moving forward, and be on the other hand breaking them. So, I know that sounds like a justification or excuse, I guess, for it, but that's just the reality. You cannot do both. And Ohio State wants to take an active lead in what this looks like in the future. And this isn't even about just like writing off recruiting losses. It still fits in with the roster building, with the brotherhood, with the way that the culture has been established over the last 5 years. And I don't know what part of that is arguable. As the rules of engagement continue to change, Ohio State will evolve. That doesn't mean that they're going to be towing the line for it on every single front. And I personally don't have a problem with it. And I know that there are people that do, and that's fine too. We all have difference of opinion, and some of them are better than others. Like Paul Finebaums are terrible. On the Austin Birm show, we try to be better.
Yeah. And I think it's worth saying again, explanations are not excuses. Now, you may not like the explanation, but that doesn't mean it's an excuse.
Yeah. But as Birm said, there are some opportunities out there for Ohio State, still plenty of them actually on the recruiting front. So he will have some stuff to break down. Some of that will be on the beat. Some will be on other shows throughout the week. A couple of big commitments, as Birm said, looming on Friday. Trying to get back with some Talking Tuesdays with Adam King and ramp up the coverage, because we are now 2 weeks away from a trip out to Las Vegas for the start of Big Ten Media Days. And we are 3 weeks away from the first practice of training camp. Is that right? Is that good math? No, it's not good math.
I mean,
3.5 weeks.
3.5. Yeah.
3.5 weeks.
As close. It's just as close to 3 as it is to 4. It's also just as close now to 2050 as it is 2020.
Wow.
We should probably, tomorrow's show should be all about what college football is going to be like in the year 2050.
Well, Ryan Day's the one who has all the answers. He's the one who can see the future. So we need his
also,
input on that.
It's the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com. If you have a different subject you'd like us to talk about or dive into, you can send us some input. The Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com. Otherwise, we're talking about college football in 2050.
And it may be about time for an overdue mailbag. So you can send in questions in there as well, and we'll get to that.
Do you remember the show Futurama? You know how they had like the talking heads in the jars on the...
Yeah.
I fully envision that Get Up in the year 2050 will still be Paul Finebaum's head, just floating in a jar of fluid.
Paul Finebaum and Stephen A. Smith just firing off takes about Ryan Day.
Just heads, just floating heads, just floating off, firing off in some liquid goo.
There'll probably be the same number of people watching that show then, but who knows for sure. We're on the way to 2050, and we're on the way to the return of college football in 2025. Thanks for joining us on this Monday after the holiday weekend to get things rolling. This is The Beat. He's Birm. I'm Austin. We'll talk to you tomorrow.